Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be making a stylized flower pot or plant pot using Blender and Substance Painter. Let's start with this base cube. I'm gonna scale it down and move it. I'm going to create an empty, add an array modifier. I need to apply first scale and rotations and set the position to the 3D cursor. Now I can rotate this, something like this, and increase the amount of blanks. I can add here some, yeah, like this is fine. I think I need to move these vertices. Okay, good. I can add some bevels just to subdivide this plank. And okay, subdivide. I have the base for this plant pot. I want to scale this a little bit. I want to make some different heights in this part, like this, but I need first to apply the array modifier. But first I'm going to do other things. For example, I'm going to add here a base, maybe with 12. We can remove these since they are covered, and we can add here grid fill. Okay, subdivide. I have this face. I'm going to invert the normals using Control N, and this one too. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this to make the dirt like a ground here. I need to remove the bottom side. And that's cool. We can subdivide this and have a surface ready to sculpt, just to add some levels. So I'm going to add a circle. We can use here 24, maybe vertices. Okay, perfect. And add some bevel. And subdivide. We need to flip this and duplicate this. We can invert this with SC-1 and apply scale, and we need to invert these normals. Okay, we have the base. I think this is cool. Okay, we can add here in the front like a bottle cork, making it looks like it was a barrel in the past. Maybe something like this. We can make it look stylized. I'm going to isolate this. That's cool. I'm going to sculpt this later just to make it look better. And to make these planks with a different height, I'm going to apply the array modifier, pressing Ctrl A, or just here apply. And now we have different shapes for each of these planks. I'm going to press P and separate by loose parts, so I have every single plank as a separate object. And we can position the 3D cursor on the world origin, and then scale all of these using the 3D cursor. So we select one plank and press SC to scale in the Z axis, something like this. I'm going to make these look even, but not like this, for example. That makes no sense. That's something quite interesting. Here for the base, we can add a simple sculpt later with some planks. but I'm not going to create them as 3D objects since that will be baked as a plane. And that's it. I think we have the base of this pot. We need to add some plants here, but I'm going to first make some levels here. I'm going to be using the sculpt. Okay, we can add some levels here. Okay, we have the barrel or the plant pot. I'm going to make now some plants. You can draw them in 2D using Photoshop or any other drawing software, but I'm going to make them now in 3D because I want to bake them. I am not sure if I'll be using opacity right now, but meanwhile I'm going to 3D model them. I'm going to create just a simple leaf shape, nothing too complicated. That's a good shape. I'm going to duplicate this just to remove some of the cuts into the leaf. Okay, that's cool. I'm going to select all of them and select the middle line here and move it using the proportional editing tool, this one. Okay, that's cool. I'm going to add now here a solidify modifier and increase the thickness. Yeah, that's cool. Make sure you don't have some overlapping edges. You will notice if you use the face orientation tool here. If you have some overlapping vertices, for example, like this, all of those red parts are overlapping. So make sure you use the correct amount of thickness here. Okay, like this is fine. Copy modifiers here. Select the last one, the middle one, and the first one, and press Ctrl L and copy modifiers. It's looking fine. You can add the curvature here or bending the leaf like this, but this time I'm not going to be doing this right now since we can do this later. First we can texturize all of this or simply use them as 2D shapes. Maybe the solidify modifiers not necessary, but for now I'm going to be using it like this. Okay, now I'm going to make this stem. We can use a simple cube here and scale it to make the stem. It's not necessary to do something too complicated. And that's cool. Let me prepare them for sculpting. I'm going to move all of them to a new folder called hide. I'm going to hide the rest. And here select everything. And you need to rename them. For example, Stylized plant pot and replace names. This add-on is in the video description. You can do this manually, by the way. And add a suffix _high. Perfect. Now select everything and apply scale. Duplicate this and click. Using Shift D and click. And move it to a new collection called low. Now you need to hide the high version. Select everything here and replace these suffixes using the add-on or doing manually. And type here high 0.001 and here type low. That's cool. We have the same names for each piece here. For example, the deer with this name, and this high version is the same mesh. So with this Substance Painter, we'll bake each model in the low and the high folder correctly. We need to hide the low version, the low folder, and I'm going to prepare all of this for Sculptor. First, I'm going to work with the planks. Select all of the planks, isolate them, and I can increase here the subdivision level to maybe 4 or 5 and enable here the statistics, and you can see the triangles here. Maybe I'm going to be using 4 since I'm going to remesh them, by the way. Yeah. So select everything and press convert to mesh with Alt-C, or go to object, convert, mesh. Now all of this is a real mesh with no modifiers. Now select everything, apply scale, and go to object, sculpt mode, and here you need to press Shift R or Control R and select an amount here, something that your PC can handle, or go here to remesh and use the voxel size and type something like this. Don't go too low or Blender can crash, and remesh. Now we have this on the plank a million triangle. This is good since I'm going to be sculpting this and then I'm going to decimate it to optimize. So this is fine for me. And I'm going to do the same for the others. Okay, that's cool. I'm going to do the same for this part, but first we need to close them using bridge edge loops. I'm going to add here a little bevel, and the same for this one. Otherwise, if we don't do this, the remesh modifier will create some holes in the mesh. I'm going to show you. For example, if you try to remesh this object, this will happen. So to avoid this, we need to first close the mesh on all the sides. You need to have everything closed, no red parts. And then you can add a remesh. Apply scales and rotations. Go to sculpt mode and add a remesh. As you can see, now it is working. Perfect. Now we can sculpt over this. As you can see. You need to be too careful using the remesh tool, because if you go to a small, very small voxel size, for example, like this drastically, you can crash the software. So of course, make sure to save all the time. Now do the same here with the leaves. I'm going to select this first one as subdivisions, and I think I'm going to be using 4. Apply, convert to mesh of these. Same for the stems. Apply scale and rotations, and select one of the flowers and go to sculpt mode, and here you need to add remesh. Okay. I think the stem is not necessary since this is just a flat stem. We don't need to add many details over this. The important is the leaf. So I'm going to leave the stems like that. Okay, cool. This is ready to be sculpted. We have 33 million triangles. You can be fine with this amount of triangles to sculpt since they are not one single mesh. If you have one single mesh with this amount of triangles, everything will be very laggy. But if you have a lot of objects here, we have 23 objects. Each one of them is like 2 or 1 million triangles. This can be sculpted very smoothly. Of course, you need to have a good PC to handle all of this. As you can see, we can sculpt very good, very smooth. But if your PC cannot handle this, try to avoid very high density on the remeshes. So instead of 1 million, you can have only, for example, 800k or 600K or something like that. Just a balance between quality and density in the remesh and something optimized for your PC. Okay, cool, let's sculpt all of this. Okay, let's sculpt this. I'm going to be using some of the art brushes and also this scrape raised brush, maybe. I'm not sure. But we need to add first some bevels here using the pen. You don't need to complicate too much with the soil here. You can add a texture. It is not necessary to sculpt this. But this time I wanted to sculpt this just to make it look quite decent and different. I'm going to add some rock of my brush collection. This brush pack is available in the description below. You can get it. But by the way, you can use any kind of brushes that contain rocks. Okay, that's cool. That's enough. I'm not going to add anything else here. We have a base for this plant pot, but we need to sculpt the good here. These planks can be sculpted as you want. For example, crease sharp brush and change here the file of to sharper. You can enable the pressure of the pen and drag some lines. You can do something simple like this. Play with other brushes like the crease polish. By the way, there are many different ways to do a good sculpture, but I'm going to be using now some lines I made, some levels. This brush pack is a brush pack that I'm working on. It is not available yet to download or purchase, but you can use any other kind of brush out there in the market. They are just simple levels. You can achieve the same with my older brush pack using these levels. They are intended to be for rocks, but you can use them here in good sculpture maybe. Or simply you can add some mask. For example, you can draw here something with a mask like this. Then using the graph brush, you can simply move some of the lines here, and that's all. You are creating some levels. Of course, this will take you more time since you need to drag some mask, draw some mask, and use here the graph tool, and then clear the mask. Will take you some time, but this is the same kind of structure, so I made those levels already as brushes so I can use them for my sculptures. You can add now some extra details. You can use the clay brush to make some holes like this, maybe. Okay, we can add some extra sharp lines here to the good. Nothing too much, just avoid exaggeration here. I'm going to remove here in the base the top part, since as we close with the soil here, that part is not visible, so it's not necessary. I'm going to increase the subdivision to 6 here and apply. Then we can sculpt here. Maybe we need to add another subdivision. Yeah, maybe this is enough now. And we can have some simple lines here. Of course, this bottom part sometimes is not necessary, since the plant pot will be in a vertical position, but maybe you will need it if you want to make it look like someone knocked over this plant pot. So yeah, that's enough. That's fine. Okay, we have the base of sculpture. Okay, for the leaves, let me try something. Maybe we can try the grease char brush. Okay, I like this result. So now what we need to do is optimize this sculpture. So because we have 35 million triangles, so we need to decrease this density just to make the scene more optimized and to export this to Substance Painter. We can keep it like this, but of course the software will be a little bit slower. Okay, so now for the optimization process. This is not the optimization for the low poly, just for the sculpture. We need to first save this as a copy. We can save this as backup, or something like that. And now we need to select one of the most dense objects here in the mesh, so in this scene. For example, the blanks are the most dense objects here. As you can see, we have almost 23 million triangles. So we need to select first one of them and add a modifier called decimate. Here we need to select a ratio of maybe 20% to optimize this and reduce the 80% of the triangles in this sculpture. Of course, once we do this, we are not going to be able to sculpt over this optimized blank. So that's why we made the backup if you want to add some new sculpture later. But this time we need optimization. So type here 0.2 and enter. Okay, this finished. We need to make sure we don't have glitches here over the mesh, because that will be affect our bake process later. So this amount of decimation works. So select the mesh with the decimate modifier, select everything then, and press Ctrl L and link transfer data, copy modifiers, or go to object, link transfer data, and copy modifiers. This will take some time. Okay, it finished. Now we need to convert all of these planks in meshes without this modifier. Select everything, go to object, convert, and mesh. This will take some time again. Okay, good. Now we reduce the amount of triangles from 23 million to almost 5 million. So that's good. And as you can see, we removed all of the information on flat areas or unnecessary parts of this mesh. As you can see, we have more density only on important parts of the sculpture, the lines, the cavities here, and the borders. The rest, the flat areas, are optimized. But now we cannot sculpt over this. We can add some info, for example, this, but if we add some complex shapes over the sculpture, this will look bad like this, as you can see. So that's why this optimization process needs to be made at the end of all of the sculpture. Okay, now do the same for the rest of the objects. Okay, perfect. We reduced from almost 30 million triangles to 7.5 million triangles. So now this is very optimized for export, and that's okay. That's perfect. I think I'm going to merge this stem with the leaves. So I'm going to select this one, then the last one, and join with Ctrl J. Now we have only 3 meshes here. So we need to do the same maybe with the low. This with this. But I'm going to do this later. Okay. The sculpture is done. I think I did a good job, but of course, you have many ways to sculpt this kind of objects and the wood and the metal. You can use different brushes or different techniques to do this. It's all about the result you want to approach. You can watch many references and learn different type of sculpture. For me, it looks very good. Okay, now select everything here in the high poly and go to File, Export, FBX. Here, copy this setup and export. I'm going to call this Sculpt, and that's perfect. Now go back to the low poly folder, and we need to create the UVs and all of the optimization. Well, for this, I'm going to work with this plank first just to show you, since this is not a full tutorial. UV process is quite complex. You can watch my previous videos to learn this step, but I'm going to show you first how to optimize one of the meshes in this scene. I'm going to select the subdivision modifier, and I'm going to decrease this to a level that won't affect the silhouette of this mesh a lot. For example, this time we have a good silhouette without the modifier. As you can see, we can remove the modifier and the silhouette will be practically similar. But if your model without the modifier looks like this, for example, this is not good, because we have a very clear difference here in the curvature, as you can see. So this part will be bad baked later in Substance Painter. So we need to keep the same silhouette of the original model. So this time I'm going to remove the subdivision modifier, then enter to this, now enter to edit mode, and we can start optimizing this. You need to remove edges that won't affect the silhouette also. For example, if we remove this one, this will happen. That will affect a lot the geometry here. So this time, maybe we can remove some of the inner faces this plant pot, for example, all under this soil. So this time we can remove all of those faces. They are not necessary here. And we can also remove this one. Yeah, maybe like this. But we need to first maybe move this in the y-axis and then remove it. We can move this on top a little bit. Of course, you can do topology work here, but that will take you a lot of time. You need to evaluate if that is worth it or not, because it is not necessary. But if you want to do full topology and merge everything in just one single mesh, that's possible. Just will take you some extra time. Okay, I think this is good. I like this this mesh. So I'm going to make the seams for this. Okay, if we unwrap this just as it is, this will happen. Everything is a mess. So if you want to use a Smart UV project, of course you can. Just sometimes if the mesh is too complex, Smart UVs may create a real mess here with all of the UVs. Sometimes that works, but sometimes it doesn't. So I always prefer to be using seams for this. So I'm going to add some seams here. Okay, perfect. Now, if we unwrap these, first the result will be the same or maybe similar to Smart UV projection. As you can see, it's practically the same because this is a simple object, a simple mesh. But for more complex ones, you need to create good and decent seams. Okay, that's good. Now we need to select one of the seams and go to select similar seam, and now here add mark sharp. As you can see, now we have the sharp edges, and if you have a seam, you need to have a sharp edge. Now add modifier normals, weighted normals, and keep sharp. This is just to have a good shading in your object. Okay, and now we need to do the same exactly for all of these pieces. Okay, for the leaves, this time I'm going to be using just a plane to make it with opacity. Even if you don't use opacity, then you can change it and create a real mesh over this leaf. But this time, I'm going to be using a plane just to bake the leaf over this plane. You need to position it very close to the leaves so it can be baked correctly. Maybe just in the center like this. Now select all of them and press convert to mesh. And select the stem, then the leaf, and select the stem and the leaf and Ctrl J or join. Okay, so we copy this name, delete the leaf, and paste the name over the plane. As you can see now, we have the same name of the leaf here in this plane. So it will bake the high poly over this plane correctly. Do the same for this. Copy, remove the leaf, and paste it here. Select the leaf, copy the name, delete the leaf, and paste the name over the plane. Perfect. Now we have these planes correctly named. Now if we go to the high poly and we select the leaf, the names should match. For example, if this leaf is called 002 underscore high, and the plane is called the same, just the different is the suffix underscore low. All the same for the other ones. That's perfect. Now just hide the high poly and keep the low poly. Okay, now select those planes and just project from view. Go to UV editing, and here we can have the entire UV for these plants. Since I'm going to be using an entire material for these leaves, and I'm going to call these Stylized plant pot leaves matte. Select all of them, Ctrl L, and link materials. Now as you can see, they are in the same material. Okay, now for the rest, I'm going to be using another material, which will be called Stylized plant pot barrel matte, and select everything and link materials with Ctrl L. Okay, why I'm using two materials? Because you can use only one, since the leaves are not that detailed, and we can optimize everything of this in one material. But sometimes using opacity in blend mode or alphas to optimize this, sometimes in the rendering you have some issues using blending or opacity. So that's why I'm separating this in a different material. Usually when I work with clients, and even in my job, when I use opacity channels, they ask me to do them in a different material to avoid some rendering problems. Now let's hide these plants since they are ready, and let's work over this barrel. Select all of these, apply scale and rotations. I'm going to select one of these and Ctrl L, copy modifiers, just to ensure everything is with weighting normals and everything is using sharp edges, as you can see. Now select everything and convert to mesh. Select everything, press M, and merge by distance. This will remove all of those overlapping edges. For example, if you select this face and you press Shift D and duplicate this, and you leave it like that, you may not notice there is some duplicated faces. But if you select this and move, there is another face in the same position. So that will be a big problem, since we are going to have some big issues there. So that's why we select everything and merge by distance. As you can see, we remove the vertices duplicated. So, okay. Now select all of these and go to UV editing. And here you have all of the UVs we made before using the seams. You need to organize all of this. Of course, you can do this manually, but this will take you a lot of time. Blender have a tool to do this. You can press Ctrl P and pack islands, then pack. It will organize all of the islands inside the UV square. Then if we select overlap and you see some vertices overlapping there, then you need to fix them just separating them. As you can see, you just need to separate those vertices. Okay, this add-on or this tool, Ctrl P, pack islands, or here, it works very good. You can play with it to have a very optimized UV layout, but I'm going to be using now an add-on that is called UV Packmaster. Some of you may know it. This is a paid add-on, but you can use free alternatives like UV Packer. As you can see, you need to tweak this to make it work correctly. But this time I'm going to be using UV Packer. I'm going to select here the margin to 4. I'm going to normalize the scales, and that's all. Now I'm going to pack it. Okay. Now I'm going to prioritize some faces. For example, this soil, I want it to have a decent quality. This will be very visible. I'm going to scale it up a little bit. This bottom part is not too necessary, but as you can see here, this is not UV unwrap. We need to unwrap it first. This is not necessary to have very high quality since it is on the bottom. Okay, same for this faces. So I'm going to decrease here the size. They are not the priority of this model. And for the rest, okay, let me select the base and invert this. We can increase the quality of this. Okay, but for example, those faces inside aren't too necessary. We can select only this face, press Ctrl plus, and here decrease the size. Okay, we can increase the resolution of these lines, maybe like this. They are already using most of the square here. We cannot exceed the borders. And of course this, okay, good. And also for this part, since this is a very small piece, UV Packmaster may decrease a lot the priority of this because it's a small piece, but I want it to have a more decent quality. So I'm going to increase it. Okay, the rest is fine. So now I'm going to select all of these and disable normalize scale and pack. So it will pack this using the scales I made before. I'm going to enable heuristic search. And this is a good packed. Very good. This is finished. You can add a checker texture here just to check if the UVs are correct. As you can see, they are all correct. And as you can see, we added priority to this to this front and top part, and we removed priority to this bottom parts. Not too much. You can even decrease it and give it less priority. As you can see, the squares are bigger. It means they have less resolution, but this time this is fine like this. Okay, make sure there are no red faces. If you apply scale and you see red faces, for example, like this, they are bad. You need to have all of them in blue. Remember to enable these, go here and face orientation. Okay, for the lips, I'm going to add also checker. As you can see, everything now is correct. So we need to make sure we apply the materials and everything is good. And then we can export this. File, export FBX. Okay, now I'm going back to the sculpture and I'm going to use a Vertex paint to add here colors to mask in Substance Painter. I'm going to be using my ID Maps palette. This is available in the description below. Of course, you won't have it, and you can select the colors manually. You don't need this color palette, but I'm going to be using this because I made this color palette and it is compatible with Substance Painter, so it will use these different colors and they are not going to be selected as similar colors. Because if you, for example, select this green and you paint this with green and then you select another green but in the same or similar position, Substance Painter will sometimes take those both green colors as the same one. So that's why I made this color palette, since Substance Painter will identify all of them as different colors. So I'm going to paint it using set vertex color. I have a shortcut, but it's the same. I'm going to be making some random selections like this and then paint others with a different color just to add a quick small variation, maybe 3 colors. Like that. That's cool. Now this with another color, the curve with another color, and the soil and the bottom. Same for the leaves. The stem will be the same color, but if you want the stem with another color, you need to go to edit mode and select the stem, pressing L, then go back to vertex and use the paint mask. And here change the color of the stem to another one. As you can see, this time I'm going to be using the same color for the stem. And that's all. We have our colors to mask in Substance Painter. This process is not necessary sometimes, because if you have good UVs, you can simply use the polygon fill tool in Substance Painter to mask the materials. But I prefer to use Vertex paint, since for me it's easier and you have more control over all of the painting process. So select now everything and go to File, Export, FBX, and here I'm going to call it as ID map. Of course, you can export the same ID map as the sculpture. It's practically the same. Usually I prefer to have them as a separate mesh. Okay, now here in Substance Painter, I'm going to select the low poly model we exported before in Blender. Then press OK. Here we have the barrel import in Substance Painter. Then go to Baking, and here select the high poly, or the sculpt one in my case. And I'm going to first disable the leaves and keep only the barrel. I want to work with this first. Here in Match, select by mesh name, and I'll be using the same suffix we made in Blender. And here disable ID map this time, and in curvature I'm going to self intersection only same mesh name, and enable height. Maybe I'm going to be using hide mesh map. So I'm going to decrease the max frontal distance until we see red. As you can see, now we don't see red. There's a little red spot in there. Make sure you don't have any other red part. Now we can increase or decrease the rear distance. I usually increase it, and that's good. I'm going to save this project first, and we can use 1K resolution output size just to test, and let's check if it works. Okay, here you see some problems. As you can see, there's a baking issue. There are also two. We have a lot of baking issues here. Okay, we need to increase here the max frontal distance until we don't see those errors. Okay, we're still having this issue here, but I'm not sure if the problem is the distance. We need to fix this. Well, yeah, the problem was the distance here. Okay, here we have a different issue that we need to fix. The rest seems to be good. Here in the bottom we have the same problem that we need to fix. Okay, identify the meshes where you have problems. It seems to be only this face and the bottom face. So go back to Blender. First, make sure to apply scales and rotation to the high poly objects, so you don't have problems later in the bake. Here select this object, and let me check if the problem is here. Okay, select all the barrel, and yeah, I see the problem here. I moved this bottom part to show you something, and I forgot to fix it. So the problems in this part is that we have this bottom face overlapping all of these UV squares. So we need to remove this to fix this, but we need to, of course, put this circle inside the UV square. So for this, I'm going to pack this again. That will fix the problem quickly. But of course, if you don't have any add-on and you want to do this manually, you need to put this inside the UV square. Of course, you will need to do a lot of work for this, but the important is that you need to avoid overlapping UVs. As you can see, select overlap, and you have overlaps here. You need to pack this again and avoid overlapping. As you can see now, we don't have any overlapping vertices. So that's cool. We need to export again the low poly. File, export, FBX, low, and back to Substance Painter. If we re-import our object here, or pressing Ctrl Shift R, and go back to the bake and bake it again. As you can see, now we don't have that problem. The problem was here and here. And now this is looking very good. Okay, so now you need to bake it in good quality. I'm going to be using 8K resolution for this and bake. Okay, back here in paint mode, we can see the bake was successful. Everything is correctly baked and with a good quality. Okay, perfect. Now we need to do the same for the lips, but first I'm going to bake the ID map. Here in the ID map, select Vertex color if you are using Vertex paint, remove the high poly and select the ID map. Make sure you select only ID here and bake. Now as you can see, we have all the colors we paint in Blender here in Substance Painter ready to be masked. Okay, now save it. And for the lips, there's a little difference here since we are going to be using opacity. First I'm going to bake the normal, workspace normal, ambient occlusion, curvature, position, thickness, and height. And I'm going to remove the ID map, select the sculpt, and here increase the max frontal distance a lot. Make sure you select only the lips, and the max rear distance a lot too, as you can see. Now we need to bake all of this. Okay, perfect. We bake this, as you can see, but we need an opacity mask information here. So now we need to bake the opacity. That simple opacity layer will help us to add opacity information here in the lips. So I'm going to change the shader here to blend PBR alpha blending. Okay, and here in the lips material, I'm going to add here fill layer, and sorry, first go to texture setting plus here opacity, and here I'm going to use the opacity mask we baked, this one. That's all. We have the lips with opacity mask. Okay, now go back to the baking panel, and we are going to be baking the ID map for the lips. And that's all. Now this is ready to be texturized. Okay, now we already have all of the baking process made, so we can start texturizing this. I'm going to be using my Stylized base material. Remember, this is in the video description, or you can watch some of my previous long videos and learn how to make this. This material is free, and I'm going to show you something right now. I'm going to add this material on the barrel. So if you want to avoid going to the lips and back to the barrel, this will take you some time to load. So as we are going to be using Vertex paint or color selection, because we bake the ID map, I'm going to show you a very interesting way to texturize without moving from materials to other. So I'm going to select the barrel first, and here select right click on my material and instantiate across texture sets, and here select the lips. As you can see, we have this material as an instance, our lips material. So we cannot edit it here, but if we did the barrel and we change some of the colors, it will be editing all of the material, even on another one. Okay, cool. And now I'm going to show you something else. If you want to texturize your plant pot with the lips here already positioned, you can, but you need to first do this process. Okay, now we can go back to Blender, and these are already lips. So if you duplicate them and keep them in the same position, you can hide them now. Okay, and if you want to, for example, position some of these lips already here in your barrel, maybe like this, just to show you, and I'm going to just add some extra geometry here and just add some simple bends like this just to show you. Okay, now add shade smooth, and if you go back to Substance Painter, exporting only this file, export FBX, and here call it low lips, for example, then here in Substance Painter, as we already baked the lips and we replace this with a lips version, the lips are going to be positioned in here, as you can see. So we can you can position all of those planes uh, as you want and texturize these with the leaves already positioned. Of course, sometimes this process may not be easy because you need to position the squares without seeing the leaves, but make it as you want. This time I just prefer to do the traditional way. Okay, and now start texturizing. You can use my material and be creative with this. Okay, here's my final model. I hope you like the result of this. If you want to get this model, it is in the video description, available on Fab. But I hope this video was useful for you. You can give me a like, subscribe if you want for future videos, and post some comments, ask me questions, and all of that. Okay, thanks for watching, and see you next time.